Good morning and welcome to WDHA's Jersey Magazine. I'm your host, Jim Monaghan. My guest this morning has been covering the Yankees for 20 years. He's been an MLB.com beat reporter since 2007. Bryan Hoch, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Jim.
Bryan's new book is called The Bronx Zoom, Inside the New York Yankees Most Bizarre Season. And Bryan, I want to start sort of at the beginning. We'll take you back a little bit more than a year. As things started to shut down last March, we really didn't have any idea how long this would go. My wife's a teacher. They thought they were going home for 2 weeks. 2 weeks turned into a whole lot longer than that. When did you get the idea for the book?
I lived that too. I was in spring training with the Yankees and the players came off the field March 12th. That was the day after Rudy Gobert and the NBA shut down and Tom Hanks with the Instagram post. And they told us at the time, opening day will be delayed by at least 2 weeks. So that seemed like, okay, fine, we can deal with 2 weeks. It wound up being a whole lot more than that. There was a battle between the players and the league in terms of safety protocols and then money and a big fight. And I'll be honest with you, for a long time, I didn't think I was going to walk into Yankee Stadium at all last year. I said there was no way they were going to play a season. Of course, they did get back up to New York. They had a summer camp. And once they got the season started, I thought that, wow, if they're able to pull this off, this would be a remarkable achievement because going back to that time, it seemed like the season was hanging in the balance. It could shut down any day. There was the incident with the Marlins who had 18 positive COVID tests. The Yankees were stranded in Philadelphia for 3 games because of that with no team to play against. And I thought that if this actually happens, this is a story worth telling because the challenges it took to get through, even to play 60 games in that environment, was just remarkable.
I thought you mentioned Philadelphia. I thought that story in the book was great because there they are. They can't play. Hey, guys, we can go to Baltimore. It almost sounded like an American Legion type of game. In a sport, baseball players, obviously, they're so superstitious and everything is done by routine. How difficult was that for the players to just adjust? Yep, on the bus, let's go to Baltimore.
Yeah, it was immensely difficult. I think that is one of the biggest challenges they had because baseball players are creatures of routine. They a lot of times eat the same thing every day before a game. They do the same workout before a game. They have a very regimented schedule where they don't want to be thrown off. And 2020 threw everybody off. And there was no consistency to the year. And, as we're talking about there with the Marlins situation, the Phillies weren't able to play against them. So the Yankees spent 3 days in a Philadelphia hotel room, and they were about to get on the bus and go back to New York and just say, all right, let's have a workout at Yankee Stadium. Somebody came up with a bright idea that said, hey, the Baltimore Orioles are in the same situation we are. Why don't we just turn the bus to Baltimore and play against them? And that would never happen in any other season. But because it was 2020, Major League Baseball said, yeah, all right, go play against the Orioles. And by 8 o'clock that night, they were on the field at Camden Yards. So it was just the most bizarre season I've ever experienced or covered. Things were happening where the schedule was just changing day to day, and you just never knew what was going to happen next. And when you checked your cell phone in the morning, you never knew what news that day was going to bring.
We're talking to Bryan Hoch this morning. He's an MLB.com a beat reporter for the Yankees. His new book, The Bronx Zoom, Inside the New York Yankees Most Bizarre Season. There's a moment in the book, Bryan, that I was unintentionally funny, I think at the time, but you think back now. You mentioned ping pong tables being set up in the hotel rooms, and the guys are playing ping pong. Brett Gardner, no surprise how competitive he is. But you mentioned Jonathan Holder talking to the other players about putting spin on the ball. And this is long before Spider Tack. As I was reading that part in the book, I burst out laughing.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot different, but yeah, there was a lot going on last year that I wish I knew about a Spider Tack. I never even heard of it before this year. Obviously, that has been the big storyline of 2021, but and certainly Garrett Cole coming to New York, being the ace, and now he's the focal point of that, the spin rate talk. And so I think that this is something that has been going on in baseball a long time. You go back and talk about Gaylord Perry and spitballs and stuffed balls and Joe Niekro with sandpaper falling out of his back pocket on a mound inspection. There is a history of baseball players trying to get an edge, and this is just one incident here where First of all, there's better stuff to put on the ball that can create spin and make you a better pitcher. But we've also got the technology to measure it now, whereas like I covered that Michael Pineda game at Fenway Park about 6 years ago where he had pine tar on his neck and he got ejected. And I remember going into the Red Sox clubhouse that night, and David Ortiz said, "We don't care. I mean, I'd rather a guy know where the ball is going than put a 95-mile-an-hour fastball in my ear." I think the difference now is it's become a competitive advantage for these guys. It's not just helping them throw strikes. It's helping them throw better pitches. And I think that's part of why you've seen strikeouts go up so much in baseball now.
You mentioned the Michael Pineda thing. When that happened, I spoke to 5 or 6 current and former major league players, and it was the same reaction, Brian. We don't care. I think with Pineda, it was such an obvious thing, that that was what forced the Red Sox to make the move there. Hal Steinbrenner in the book talks about how great Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred was navigating through those early days of the pandemic. You fast forward now, we've got all of this stuff going on, as you said, with spider tack and illegal substances, changes that have been made to the ball. And Manfred's taking a lot of heat right here. Which Rob Manfred do you think is closest to the real one?
I think it's got to be somewhere in the middle, right? I credit to MLB for actually pulling off last season because those were challenges that nobody could have ever anticipated or prepared for. And like I said, and that was part of my reason for writing the book, is that if they're able to somehow get through this, it wasn't clean. It wasn't easy. There were bumps in the road, every twist and turn, but somehow they got through it and they actually completed a postseason and crowned a World Series champion. Of course, Justin Turner in that game tests positive, the final game of the World Series. And you just say, what else is going to happen here? And it was a cluster. It was a fiasco. The whole year was, but they somehow got through it. And here in 2021, I feel like you're dealing now with the hangover effect of that. We've still got some rules from 2020 that are in baseball with the 7-inning doubleheaders and the automatic runner on second base that have continued here. And I'd honestly like to see those go away. I'd like to return to the 2019 format. I thought that those were pandemic era rules. And now that we've got fans back in the ballparks, like, let's get back to that 2019 baseball product. But hopefully by 2022, we can do that. I think that Manfred and the commissioner's office and MLB, they have a fight on their hands here because, as I detail in the book, that was a contentious negotiation just to get that season underway. And, the disappointing part for me was that with this virus raging, with people out of work, it wasn't the safety that was the holdup. It was money. And money was the big debate for weeks there, where they probably could have gotten back on the field earlier than July 23rd, but they were held up by fighting over money. So I don't think that that bodes well for what's going to happen this offseason when the collective bargaining agreement is being debated. I think they will play a full season next year. I'm hopeful, but I can't guarantee it.
Our guest this morning on the Jersey Magazine is Bryan Hoch, the MLB.com Yankees beat reporter. His new book, The Bronx Zoom, Inside the New York Yankees Most Bizarre Season. One of the things that we've been focusing on this show, Brian, is the mental health aspect of everything that happened. And we talked a little earlier in the interview about baseball players being creatures of habit and they get into a routine. What was the biggest adjustment you think the players had to make from a mental standpoint? And how hard was that whole season on them mentally?
Yeah, mentally, I think it was a real grind. Obviously, physically, guys had trouble preparing there where their gyms and their workout facilities were shut down. But once they got going on that and had access to those facilities again, then I think it was a mental grind, because I talked to Zach Britton in the book, for example, and he went back to Texas with his wife and kids. He has 4 kids and his wife was pregnant at the time. And when the Yankees restarted the year, he hugged them goodbye. He gave them a kiss. He got on a plane and he didn't see them again until after the American League Division Series in October. So that was not uncommon, where players didn't have their usual support system to lean on. They didn't have their wives and families and, extended family around wanting to go to games, because they literally could not go to the games. And so I think that being out there in your pinstripes on the field at 7:05 and looking around and seeing an empty ballpark with no energy in it, I think guys had to really manufacture that for themselves. And it was an adjustment, because look, going back to Little League, these guys are used to having There are fans in the stands.
Yeah.
There's always been somebody in the bleachers. And then suddenly there's nobody there to watch you play. And then I think you really had to found out which guys were mentally strong and could block that out, and which guys really struggled in that environment.
And what about you personally? You have 2 young children at home. What was that like for you from a mental health standpoint of trying to go through and navigate all of this?
The hardest year I've ever had to been through. I mean, that was not fun at all. The early part of it, where before baseball started, I'm not going to lie and say it wasn't nice being home at 5 o'clock and, make a pasta dinner and take the girls for a walk. And then we watch a Disney movie together. But there was something missing because what I do is cover baseball. I go to the games, I travel with the team, and not being able to do that, I was lost for a long period of time. And it was made even more difficult because if we go back to July, there was so much uncertainty. Nobody knew what was going on. We personally had not even gone to a grocery store since March. And then suddenly I was going into New York City every day and going to Yankee Stadium. So we made the decision to quarantine separately during the baseball season. So I was apart from my wife and kids that entire baseball season, and being away from them for 3 months was extremely difficult. I feel like I can kind of sympathize with what the players went through because I went through the same thing to cover baseball last year. And
how old are your kids?
My 2 daughters are age 4 and 2. Penny is 4 and Maddie is 2.
Penny is very funny. Some of the videos that I've seen you post are really good. She has a future in broadcasting, Bryan.
Well, I'm just keeping the seat warm until she's ready to take over. But that was actually a product of the pandemic because, when we were quarantining separately and she was asking my wife, Connie, where's daddy? What's he doing? Oh, he's at the baseball game. So she started watching the games and the workouts and getting excited for baseball coming back. And she said, I want to make a video like daddy makes his videos. And so they did one just for fun and they sent it to me. And I thought it was adorable, of course, because she's my daughter. And I said, I'm going to just post this on Twitter and see what people think about it. And, I didn't expect anything to come from it, but people loved it. And it was, I think, in a very dark, heavy year, those Penny videos were a cool thing. It was just light. It's fun to watch a 4-year-old girl excited that baseball is coming back and to say that she hopes the Yankees win tonight. I think it was what people definitely needed, something bright and light in a year that was so heavy.
You mentioned the emptiness of Yankee Stadium last year. Listening on the radio with the background noise piped in, you sometimes got lost in that whole thing and forgot that there weren't fans there. And in some games as well on television, depending upon the camera angle, where you weren't seeing cardboard cutouts and you didn't realize that's what it was. Again, the background noise. I didn't realize how different it was until we got to this year. And you feel that energy in the ballpark, whether it's Yankee Stadium or Citi Field or Fenway Park. There's such a total difference. It was almost, Bryan, as if the entire baseball world exhaled, like we're kind of back to normal finally.
Yeah, we're getting there. I was just in Boston last weekend. They had 3 consecutive sellouts, and to look around and see that energy and the noise and of a full Fenway Park, I didn't think I was going to see that again. I wasn't sure, to be honest with you. I mean, you go back and watch that series last year where the Yankees went to Fenway and it was completely empty. There was one random guy who broke in and got in on top of the Green Monster and started yelling things. And I mean, that's in the book too, just what a crazy year it was. And compare that to now when you've got Yankees, Red Sox, and a packed house, and Yankee Stadium hasn't had a sellout yet, and part of that is due to the Yankees' play this year. But just the idea of having 28,000 people there instead of 0 was such a stark difference. Even when this year began and the Yankees got to spring training and they had about 4,000 people in the stands, you would look around and say, "Wow, there's actual people here. This is amazing." And I think I underestimated what the fans bring to the game, the energy, the atmosphere. It's a completely different product when you have people in the seats cheering for the team rather than this weird kind of video game noise being piped over the loudspeaker. It sounds like an AM radio that somebody can't find the station. It was just, look, they got through it. They did it because they had to do it, but I hope we never have to go back to anything like that ever again.
Completely agree with you. Bryan, for WDHA listeners who want to follow you on social media, where's the best place to go?
I'm on Twitter at Bryan Hoch, BryanHoch, and Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. I'm very available on social media.
And once again, the book is called The Bronx Zoom, Inside the New York Yankees Most Bizarre Season. Bryan, thank you so much for joining us this morning here on the Jersey Magazine on DHA.
You got it, Jim. Enjoy the chat. Thank you.